So before I welcome up Chris, Rooted in History sermon, I'll just read the reading from the Chongsong-yong, page 447. When you start off in a wrong direction, you will end up in a totally unexpected place. Hence, when a ship sets out on the vast ocean, the captain should chart its course and follow the compass from the moment it first sets sail from port. Yet human beings do not even know their port of departure. They have no compass and no sense of direction or knowledge of their final destination. They have been wandering about, zigzagging here and there, according to their desires. However hard they try, they end their life without having overcome their human limitations. Let's welcome up Chris.
All right, so good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, there are a lot of things on my mind at the moment, but anyway, I've put together some thoughts. This quote from Father is the typical kind of thing that he says at the beginning of a long talk. So if you finish there, it feels like completely hopeless. But he always sets that up about how terrible things are, and then sets out, so this is how we're going to solve it. And then at the end, we say, hurrah. You know. So we'll get there. So yeah, my concept that I'm exploring is, how does restoration work? Because of situations around us, there are a lot of reasons to think about Ukraine, and I'm going to have a Zoom call with a family in Moscow tomorrow, and the situation there and in Ukraine is very, very much similar in many ways. It's just very difficult for individuals how to think, how to react to their neighbors, how to manage practical situations. But I decided not really to talk about Ukraine and Russia. So instead, I thought I'd talk about. Oops, I'm going to click. I'm going to do this one. Yeah. Talk about an old clock. So this clock. Last August, I was in Cornwall with Chio, and on the way back, we dropped by my cousins who live in Exeter, and he lives in a big old house, and he inherited this clock from his grandfather, my grandfather, our common grandfather on my mother's side. And so, of course, it's a grandfather clock, so it seems kind of appropriate to inherit it from your grandfather. Anyway, it was broken. It was quite a lot broken. I put the pieces in our car. He was going to throw it away. And I said, okay, I don't want you to throw it away. Please give it to me. It was just by chance, really. We happened to talk about what kind of things I like doing, and I'd just done a project with a school clock at my last school. So anyway, he gave me these pieces. There was a few bits of wood, and the main parts were sort of together, but it didn't work. There was a lot of dirt, corrosion. I know, originally a nice sort of brass mechanism, but it was all covered in green, a kind of sort of bluish green, copper oxide corrosion all over it. And so it was worn out, it was damaged, the mechanism wasn't working. And so I took it home, and I clicked on a little too far. So yeah, the face was looking pretty sad, and the the inside mechanism behind the clock face with the cogs and things was very messy like that. Should we press this one over this? Yeah, okay. So in order to try to fix it, then my first thing was to try to understand how it works and what kind of things one needed to use to fix it. The clock face with its paint and so on, it's quite specifically made. It's got a kind of ceramic finish, and then the flowers and so on were painted. So I was looking up online about what kind of materials were used, and it's amazing what you can find online, a YouTube video of somebody doing exactly that, almost identical situation, and showing how to clean it, what materials to use. And I was able to find very similar clocks, and in fact one which was clearly made by the same clockmaker. So I was able to find a picture of the clock that was, virtually identical, and so I knew what it was meant to look like, and even some part of the writing which was completely obliterated. I could tell, oh, that's what it was. It had the name of this clockmaker on the front. And so, there's all these experts online who are putting their skills there. So, it involved a lot of careful examination and pulling it to pieces, separating all the bits very carefully, because it's all very well separating the bits, but putting them back together again is going to be the problem. So, each bit, soaking them in white spirit and that kind of thing. And then, taking each bit apart and trying to remember where it goes, or taking pictures of it to remember that's where it went, and so on. So, it had to be very systematic. And match the original thing. So in terms of the paints, I was trying to find colours, mixing on a little palette to get the colours to match the original colours on the clock face, and putting it back together again. So bit by bit, it started to look much better. It actually looked like brass, and the cogs and so on, and the clock face, cleaned up quite well. I did a bit more after that. I did a bit more of the black. So that was a special kind of Indian ink. You had to do the numerals, and using a ruler to make straight lines and things like that. This is what I do in my spare time. See what a lot of waste. So anyway, it started to look like a mechanism that might work. It's still a work in progress, actually, because it goes for a couple of hours and then it stops, and I've got to work it out. So anyway, I'm in touch with Terry Lyndon Firma, for anybody who knows, that happens to be a clock repairer, which I found out by chance. So he's going to give me a little help to work out what's wrong. So anyway, that's what restoration is, to return something to the original state intended by the creator. And even when I was taking it apart, actually on the back of the clock face, there was the signature scratched into the back. The person who'd made it was clearly proud that they'd made it. They scratched their signature and the date, 1867, on the back of the clock, October something, I can't remember. So, there's a sort of a personal feel about it, that somebody had put in their heart and effort to make it that way. So, thinking about restoration, I remember when I first studied principle, I joined in California, and these kind of diagrams from the level 4 outline of the principle book were very common, and they're used a lot now, but they really confused me, and it was difficult to work out really what they meant, but they were the sort of be-all and end-all, at least for me. I'm not like William, who reads lots and lots of books. I pick up things pictorially. I see things, and images mean more to me than a lot of words. But these images, it's a nice idea that somehow, through true parents, then everything gets transformed. And the idea of sort of denying the past and starting a new future, and because it's starting from true parents, then that's what the way it was meant to be. That everything was meant to begin with true parents, and Adam and Eve would have created the ideal family, and it would create an ideal world, and that's it. So that was very difficult. I didn't, it seemed sort of right, but then I couldn't really make sense of it. And in California, in particular, it was definitely, sort of perhaps a product of the hippie years. It was very much an influence of the hippie culture in California. We go out in the countryside and we have this ideal community, and there we are. We've saved the world. Camp K, where I joined, was a bit like that. And yet, one of the big things that was really difficult was the idea of rejecting your parents. That was kind of a big thing there, because you've got true parents now, so your parents are false parents, and so your loyalty should switch to your true parents. Yeah, it makes sense in terms of the words, but certainly didn't make sense in terms of my feeling. And there seemed to be lots of others around me who seemed to be quite okay with this. But I was back on the phone with my parents repeatedly in tears. It was a difficult time, and of course for them it was awful. I mean, they thought virtually I'm dead. I'm halfway around the world, and I'm meant to be going to university, and I'm meant to be doing this and that, and abandoning everything. And so yeah, it was a pretty awful time. But I knew that I'm not going to let go of my parents, and so anyway, it was that kind of challenge trying to work out. So what does all this mean, and is this the right thing to do? Am I going the right way? Am I doing the right things? So just thinking about this process of restoration. Is a very difficult question, and we're faced with it in different ways now, and our children are faced with it in different ways. And I think that our children feel in many ways the same thing. They want to do something good in the world. They want to respond to the sense that things could be better, and that we can make a difference in the world, and so on. So just a couple of stories about things that led me to work out where to start. One way of finding out where to start is you throw a dice. You throw the dice and it picks something for you, right? Or you toss a coin. Right? Let's work out where to start. Well, that's how it started for me in this particular circumstance, in going to Jamaica. Because there was a lottery. Then you did it for National Messiahs and so on. Basically pulling names out of a hat. So, okay, you're going to Jamaica. So I was in the seminary at that time in New York State, and so I got Jamaica as my destination for a 40-day period. So I went to Jamaica. I decided that sounds really exciting, and it was. This was in November, or even December, I think. So it was freezing cold and snow in New York when I left. And then you fly and you land in Jamaica, and it's, whoa, sunshine, and it's beautiful. So it was a very exciting time. But I got brought to Montego Bay. So the capital, Kingston, we started in, and there were a few members in Kingston. But there was nobody in Montego Bay, so I took the bus across the country to the other side of the island, which is Montego Bay. And I kind of stood out like a sore thumb. I mean, you couldn't be more white than me. But anyway, so that's, I started there. It was pretty scary at times. There were some, threats that I received with people with knives. And, yeah. But anyway, managed to deal with that, managed to find a place to stay. But still, where to start, what to do. I was there 40 days. What am I going to do? Nobody was telling me what to do. I had no idea. So I can't remember how I found this place, but I did. I found this place. It was a school. It didn't look much like a school. It was a little tin shack with a leaky roof and uneven floor and bits of wood here and there. But it was a school for children aged between 3 and 5, basically nursery school. And it was run by a lovely little lady who was just so dedicated to the children. And it moved me, and I thought, this is something to do. This is something to restore. They'd had a Hurricane Gilbert, there maybe a year before or something like that, which had ripped everything up, anything of this kind of structure, and basically sort of thrown the bits all over the place, and they'd collected the bits and put them back together again. But, the bits were not quite the way they were originally, and so the roof had kind of been straightened out, but it had lots of holes in it, so when it rained, the water would come through, and then, of course, it would land on the dirt floor and make little pits and hills in the floor, which might be quite fun for the chickens that were running around, but it was really bad for trying to put chairs. So I saw a little, crowd of children there. They were teaching, and the chairs would fall over. They were just like planks sitting on little blocks of stone and so on. So it was a place to start, and I went round Montego Bay and collected donations. I asked for donations. There were a few businesses there. There were some very poor sections, but there were also people who had money. And a few people gave some donations. I think I brought some jewelry with me, and I sold it around the bars in Montego Bay. And so I had a little bit of money, and I had a business that was prepared to donate some sand and gravel and concrete and some corrugated roofing, so that kind of thing. We collected it all together. I got a few volunteers, and we made Shortway Basic School. We created a nice sign to put outside, and it was certainly a great sense of achieving something in those few weeks that I was there, as well as trying to do some teaching of divine principle and so on. So one place to start was throwing a dice. Yeah. Another way is you get assigned by someone you respect. So when I was at the seminary, I was asked if I wanted to go to the Soviet Union. And I thought, that's pretty scary. But, I've done scary things before, and, lots of things in my previous experience led me to think that's where to go. So I did. And then from there, I was assigned to go to Lithuania. And that was my first day of arriving in Lithuania with my big Russian hat. And there were a few people to welcome me there. There's Stephen Maris Danecki, and a lady from Latvia next door, but actually no Lithuanians. But I had to build that foundation. But again, I was there then suddenly on my own, thinking, where am I going to start? What am I doing here? What am I restoring? What am I doing? So I thought, I need to climb a mountain. Well, there was a hill in the middle of the capital city, and it's got these 3 crosses on the top of the hill, and it's called the Hill of the 3 Crosses, really creative name. But I went up there, so every morning I would climb this hill and pray up there, and I could look out across the city and think, well, what am I doing here? What can I contribute? So that's the kind of process that I went through, and eventually I did have a little group of basically school children. I mean, these were like mostly 16, 17, 18-year-olds just finishing off school. But because of the way that the seminars, the international seminars were running at that time, they were the ones who were coming along to these seminars with the support of their teachers. So I got to know the teachers, I got to know the children, and formed a little CARP group. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of things. And most of them now have children, and some of them I know still, and some of them received the blessing. So, and then, of course, the best thing happened. That was the arrival of Gio. Yeah, that's you. So that really made a lot of difference, because it was kind of awkward with all these young girls around me. So with Gio, I was a lot more comfortable. And we carried on. We built our little foundation there. So that process of discovering what to do is all about finding the roots in the history. Because just as with the clock, how to fix the clock, I needed to know where it came from. I needed to know how it worked, how it was made, what it was intended to do. And it was the same with going to Jamaica. When I went there, I was very much thinking about the history of the British in Jamaica. Actually, it was a very good history on the whole. They didn't like the Americans, but they did like the British. But there was definitely the whole history of racial relations and the origins of the people who were not originally from the Caribbean, but from Africa. And so, where to start was always then understanding the roots, understanding where they came from. Where do I come from? Where do they come from? How come we're meeting now? And going to Lithuania, that's what I did, for weeks, actually, just walking around the city of Vilnius and trying to understand what is it about these people. When I arrived in 1991, in November, just a few months earlier, in January 1991, there were Russian tanks in Lithuania. 11 people had been killed, protesting against the Soviet Union, protesting for freedom and independence. And, the circumstances there were very life and death, very intense. And so I was coming into that situation. I needed to understand that. I came along just from Moscow, having learned a little bit of Russian, and realizing that wasn't the language to speak in Lithuania. But there was a split population. There were Russian schools and there were Lithuanian schools. And anyway, all of this was the history. This was the background. I needed to understand it. There was no way to do something there without understanding the background and the roots, the history. So this concept of everything being embedded with its history, whether it's a clock or a school, a building. In Britain we're surrounded by history, and we have all English heritage and National Trust places and so on. We're bathed in history, and everywhere we look, go into central London, everything, the buildings, and then the words, language. Every single word that we speak is rooted in some past origin. Yeah, I don't know why I was driving along motorway, and it's called the dual carriageway, and I was thinking, carriages, there's this horses and carriages. That's what was originally going along here, carriages. Everything we do is steeped in history. Ourselves as individuals, our family history, who we are, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we look, everything is rooted in that history. And I was talking to my father a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, I offered to take him down to Poole, to the sea. I said, you want to go and see the sea? He said, no, I'm not interested in seeing the sea. I said, that's weird. I long to see the sea. I just love to get to the ocean and just see it open up in front of me, and I go, wow, and it just feels so good. And I realized that all comes from my mum. My mum has all these ancestors who were ship's captains, and they were, well, maybe smugglers as well, but anyway, they were on both sides. They were out at sea. You know, even though my father's ancestors come from an island in Guernsey and Jersey, they were farmers. And before that, they were stonemasons. And my father grew up in the city and in Paris and in London. And anyway, he has no interest in the sea. Very different. But anyway, the feelings that we have are rooted in our ancestors. And it's the same for organizations, ourselves, or a city, a town. I was handing out the magazines for Pinner, the Villager magazine. You must join the Pinner Association. And, it has its history. Every single place has its history. So really, the process of restoration really starts with knowing what is it we are restoring? What is it I'm trying to do? Why am I here? What is it that might make a difference here? So in answering this question, what should I do? When was I going to mention something else? There was something else before this. Oh yeah, it was just a bit of a comparison between America and Britain. I realized that probably this talk I should give to Americans, but also to young people, because Americans and young people are really not that interested in history, relatively speaking. America was started by the whole idea of breaking away from Britain and from Europe and all the things like kind of tying them down, cut all those ties, get a great big ocean in between us, and let's make a new start. And that concept of a new start and looking towards the future and just building things and just not worrying about the past, that's very much the spirit in America, and it's very, very different. Anyway, this is my experience of America. I guess it's 30 years ago, but anyway, 40 years ago. But I think it's still true. Whereas in Britain and in Europe, we're much more aware of our history, and also, when you get to 60, then you start looking back, and you're more interested in your ancestors, and so yeah, I shouldn't be talking to you, but we have this these sides of things. One is that actually, we need to leave the past behind and look to the future. But we also need to understand the past. So there's several aspects of this. So anyway, in the process, this was it popped up actually in the process of making this PowerPoint, but I thought it was interesting. First of all, we have a calling. Yeah, we choose mission, or the mission chooses us. We find a vocation. I mean, that's the starting point. We have a sense of just something. Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to do that. Or actually, being told this is what you should do. And so you think, yeah, that's me. And then we explore and we pray and we look for what to do about it. To work out what can I do, what's right, is this the right place for me to be the thing that I should be working on, and we explore that, and then we research. We look for what it is that we should understand. Who did this before, whether it was the clock, or being in Lithuania or in Jamaica. It was what happened before. Why are things the way they are now? What challenges have other people faced who are trying to do the same thing that I did? Like how difficult it is to mix the paint to put on the clock face and that kind of thing as well. And then we need to identify with that. We need to get into that mode to practice. What is it like being here, doing this thing? Walk a mile in someone's shoes. And understanding, well, what is it that I can bring to this? Can I bring something to this? If not, well, then what am I doing here? What do I have, abilities or understanding that can contribute to this? Yeah, and prepare what I need. What kind of resources do I need to do this? To rebuild this school. What do I need? Well, I need some money. I need some concrete and some roofing tiles. And then finally, after all of those things, we can start. Then we can do something. We make our determination. I'm going to do this to the end. I'm not going to just start and then drop it. And we can take the first step. So that seems to be the process. And the key point is that there's this connection that we have with the past. What are the histories? What were the successes? What are the failures of the past? We need to learn from that, inherit what's good, and respect. That's the way things are. And sort of just say they should be some other thing. That's the way they are. Whether we're thinking about Ukraine or thinking about Congo or thinking about Lithuania, wherever, whatever we're doing, we respect and we research and we find out, what happened in the past. But of course, we need to do something for the future. That's our point there. We want to build hope. We want to create expectations. We want to know what we can achieve and invest wisely. There's no point trying to do something if that's just not going to work. So it took me a long time, with the clock to really decide, should I really do this? Am I just ruining something, or am I wasting my money getting these things? But of course, the center of it is me, myself in the present. What's my connection to the past? What's my connection to the future? What are my abilities? What are the relationships that bring me here? That the heart of it is really where am I, and being in the present, not just sort of mooning over the past or dreaming about the future, but being present and doing it. So this is the way Father looked at me. This was the picture. Somebody took this picture just behind me. That's the top of my head. I did used to have some hair. And he gave me this look. This was in the seminary, just a little bit, well, maybe a year before we went off to Soviet Union. And that look stayed with me a long time. As I say, looks teach me a lot more than a lot of words. But anyway, these words seemed probably the kind of words that were in Father's mind when he was looking at me. You must set your own goals and live according to those goals. You must live your life in a way that God can move with you and history can move with you. Your life should be a model for humanity and for your descendants to follow. Also, you must be courageous and bold in your actions, as when God told Joshua, be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Thus, God reveals his will to central persons in order to fulfill his providence. Amen.